It's time to build it up. What's going on, guys? Matt, aka Martiln here, back for the third video in my series breaking down my track simulation. This video is probably going to be a little bit shorter because we're only going to be breaking down the build-ups before we then get into the drops in the next video. So without any further ado, let's jump right into Ableton and show you the session. All right, so here we are back in the simulation session in Ableton Live 10, and let's go and break down our build-ups. Anyway. So, just to give you a little bit of context, again, make sure, once again, to go listen to the tune if you haven't already, but let's just play these build-ups, hear how they sound, and then I can break them down for you. Cool. So, as you'll probably hear, the main part of this build-up section is actually this kind of rhythmic guitar sample that we've got going on, which if you watched the first video, which I highly recommend you do, and go and watch the second video as well so you're up to date, you will remember as being the second sample from the Beat Collective Fortnightly Challenge provided by Ben at Work. So basically how I got to this from the original sample, which sounded like this. I just did some warping to it to make sure that it was in time. I pulled everything back into time and then just repeated some different sections. I think I also must have transposed it down a little bit. I think I've consolidated it, so I can't quite remember exactly what I did. Just grabbed the parts of it that I liked to kind of form this new kind of riff, and then again did some little stuff. As you'll notice, this kind of second part of it here did like turn around before the it repeats again. I've just taken this little section of it right here and then tuned it up, transposed it up to create this extra kind of little bit of a turnaround, like dooga, which is really cool, leads into that first note really nicely. I had to do a little bit of figuring out of what the notes were and what the key was and everything to figure out how much I should transpose it up by, and a little bit of trial and error in there too. And then this kind of last section repeat of it just changed around a little bit, which sounds like this. Just creating a little bit of variation rhythmically, sound-wise as well, just to keep it interesting, I suppose. And you'll notice I've done the kind of same trick here as well that I did with the initial guitar melody, which I talked about in my previous video. I used this kind of Auburn Sounds Greylon plugin to just pitch it down by 12. So I didn't actually transpose the sample, I just used this. And then of course I did some processing on it. I've got a bit of a gate to get rid of the noise, some EQ. The pedal is giving it a lot of that distortion that's going on. So if I turn that off, that's basically giving the entire character of the sound in that one little effect, which is super, super powerful and awesome. And I highly recommend, if you've got Live 10, that you check out pedal. And then I've got that running into a chorus, some EQ, compression, some more EQ, some more EQ, some reverb, and then some sidechain compression and stuff going on there as well. So some pretty basic stuff going on there. Nothing too crazy to say about the drums, except for this little clap build drums that we've got going on out here, which sounds like this. It's basically just 3 different samples layered together, panned as well in this instrument rack, and I've mucked around with a few of them as well. Use some EQ, some compression, and then towards the end of it, this is what I like to do with all my kind of drum rises, is use a frequency shifter to fine tune it up a little bit, as you can see here. Then I've got an auto filter as well, just as a high pass filter, bringing it up so that it kind of fades out, creates some more tension towards the end of it, and then just some reverb and compression after that. I've got this exhaust returning, I've got these sub drops, which I talked about again in the first video that happened at the start of this verse A as well. Just different lengths, again, to create some variation and some more tension. And then a bunch of different riser samples all just layered over top of each other just to create a lot of tension. And again, just using an auto filter, a high pass, just towards the end of these, just to kind of cut them off, taper them off, and make it so that there's not a lot of energy before the drop hits, and then as soon as the drop hits, it's like massive and full and big, and you're like, whoa, that's intense. Also got this little bit of an impact sample here. Kind of this cinematic-y type reverbed out kick. Again, just to create some tension. And I find with a lot of builds, it's just all about layering a whole lot of different things, accenting the hits, and then kind of as it really builds up the tension towards the end of the build, you try and taper everything off, cut everything away until the drop hits. And then when the drop hits, because you've tapered everything away, it just makes that first hit of the drop all the more massive and all that crazy stuff, you know. So the second build up is pretty similar. In fact, essentially the only thing that's been added is this ARP sound going on here. The guitar pluck sound is pretty much exactly the same. All the risers and everything are in the exact same place. And I guess I will touch on as well this little fill at the end, which is also happening at the end of the first build up, but that sounds like this. Again, just creates that kind of moment of tension right before the drop hits. This ARP that's going on is the same ARP that happens in the verse A section, and I've just got that kind of building up over time. And then it cuts out right here when that fill hits. And to be perfectly honest, that's pretty much it for the build-ups. There's not a whole lot going on in them, but it's just all about layering stuff and then creating that tension, tapering everything off towards the end of it before the drop hits. So that wraps up the third video in this series. I really hope you got a little bit out of it. If you enjoyed the video, and you did, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and again, turn on the notifications to make sure that as soon as the last video in this series drops, you get onto it right away and you can watch it as soon as it comes out. Once again, make sure to go follow me on Instagram, all that fun stuff. Hope you're having a good day, and I'll see you in the next video.